أبدأ بسم الله والرحمن وبالرحيم دائم الإحسان.
So, as we begin this section, and this section that we're going to be engaging is a section that is very important for all of us, because I think all of us suffer from the things we're going to read at some shape, level, or some shape, fashion, or form. And it's really important for us to really reflect on what we're about to read, because it's really important to our development. You know, as we talk about seeking Allah and the things that we're doing, well, this is one of these ways. These are the things that we have to pay attention to in order to find Allah and to overcome certain issues that we may have and premonitions about oneself. You know, as we said earlier, at-tahara as-shart al-iman, right? And purifying the heart, right? This is the inner aspect of things. Purifying the heart is very, very important, right? You know, it's like having on a white outfit. You know, it's hard to keep clean, and that's how our hearts are. You know, it's hard to keep you just forget a photo. You can't even keep a white car clean. You know what I mean? You always have to wash it if you want it to look good. You always have to wash it. You know, this thing hides stains a little easier, right? But it doesn't mean it's not filled with stains. You know, with white things that we call pure, you know, we see the stains a lot easier. You know, the goal is to keep the heart white to some degree and not allow it to change into another color, because it's been, you know, it's been like tainted so much so with what? Disobedience, right? You know, and when we talk about the nature of disobedience, you know, one of the things about disobedience is that it has an effect. Disobedience has an effect, not only just on you, but people around you, right? Not only just the people around you, but like certain times it's like places that you do acts of disobedience, right? And I want you to think, you know, I don't want anybody to nod their head like, oh yeah, you know, but just think. Have you ever committed a sin or did something, right, disobedient sin, in a particular place, right? And then you left that place. And then you came back and you're reminded of that sin. And not only just reminded, but kind of want to do it again. Right? Whatever it was. You know, because acts of disobedience have a way of tainting places. Not just your own heart, but places, right? Even places, you know. If a person's going to the library, you know, to get on the computer and look at things he shouldn't be looking at on the computer, and he leaves and he goes away and then he comes back, but this time he's actually got some real work to do, you know, he might just somehow or another slip back onto that page. Or another page. Why? Because that stain of disobedience is there. It's like something like it's like the residue of disobedience is still in that area, and now that you're engaged in that area, it's kind of over. It's coming back upon you. You see what I'm saying? It's like a stain that needs to be purified. You know? It's like, you know, for people who like, you know. And this sounds crazy, but like even like people who like on the phones, you know, sending dirty pictures or looking at videos of stuff they shouldn't be looking at. You know, it's almost as if you need to play some Quran on your phone to purify your phone, get all that nastiness out of your phone and fill it back up with something good, because that phone is almost like your heart, right? You've done all these acts of disobedience, but now the heart needs to be cleansed. How is it going to get cleansed? Cleansed by a recitation of Quran, by doing, you know, prophetic dhikrs, by, you know, contemplating Allah, these kinds of things. That's the only way to cleanse the heart from the acts of disobedience. You know, obviously you want to make tawbah, right? Having regret, you know, is a form of tawbah. Outside of just saying astaghfirullah, which is just verbal. Then you have the salah, making the wudu and then engaging in the actual prayer of Tawbah, right? These things help to cleanse the heart. Likewise, my laptop or my phone or whatever it is I was using to engage in disobedience needs cleansing as well. Even the area, yes.
So this concept of personal sin and corrupting our environment, I've heard that with other lectures as well, but where does that come from?
What do you mean? Like the act of disobedience, or the
principle of personal sin causing corruption in the environment, the physical environment?
Well, because we're all connected, and that's the point. We're all connected. As human beings, we're connected. But we're not just connected as human beings, we're connected to the earth. We're connected to everything. Right? If you, like for instance, I started doing some meditation. I sit with this Vietnamese Buddhist guy, right? I go to his house from time to time. We sit down to do meditation, right? And what he tells me sometimes is like, you can actually learn to feel everything around you because there's a connection between you and everything. And in Islam, we have the very same principle. We are connected. And if we just take time to feel, like if you were to take your shoes off and step into the grass, right? And just close your eyes and allow yourself to feel. Like Bruce Lee used to say, don't think, feel, right? You just feel, right? You begin to feel the energy of the earth. You'll be able to feel like when the breeze hits you, it's a different type of feeling, right? Because we're connected. There is a connectedness between creation, right? So again, like I was saying earlier about how everything between the heavens and the earth, what glorifies Allah, right? Well, human beings also, when we are conscious of God, we also glorify Allah. And once we begin to glorify Allah, then we are once again joined into that brotherhood of creation in that we're all worshiping Allah. You understand what I'm saying? So it's from that kind of standpoint that we are, just plainly put, we are connected to the earth. And so the things that we do affect the earth and everything else around us, right? Like for instance, when the Prophet ﷺ told the archers during the Battle of Uhud, don't move. Don't move. No matter what, don't go anywhere, right? And then when everyone went out and started, they were fighting, the Muslims actually started winning. The archers were like, look, this battle's pretty much done. And everyone's getting spoils of war. We want some spoils. Don't you want some spoils? Yeah, I want some spoils. You want some spoils? Yeah, I want some spoils. Let's go. And when they did that, that's when Khalid bin Walid, before he became Muslim, saw his opening. And that's when the Muslims lost the Battle of Uhud, right? Because of their lack of obedience to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And some scholars don't like to say this, but I mean they were given a directive by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they broke it. That is a form of disobedience. We've been told to do something by Allah and His Messenger, and therefore we're not to even have an opinion. So says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. Following Him is as though following me. In other words, when you listen to what He's telling you to do, it's the same as me telling you to do it. So you following what He's doing is the same as following what I'm telling you to do. So you're following Him, you're following me, right? They were told to do something, they didn't do it. So that is an act of disobedience from one perspective. It's not the prevailing perspective, but it is one perspective. That was an act of disobedience. They broke it, and what happened? It caused the rest of the Muslims to lose lives. You see what I'm saying? Story of there was a woman and her husband, right? Old couple, and the man owned a fabric shop, right? And in the Middle East, men seem to sell the weirdest things to women. Like they sell women's bras and undergarments, the little nighties and stuff like that. And then you got men in the souk selling these things to women. I never could get across myself, how does the woman go in there, like, give me that double D, please. I just never could understand how you don't feel any shame doing that, but that's how it is. So this man is selling women's fabrics, right? And so this woman comes to look at some fabric. Now, whatever reason, this guy, he's never done anything to anybody, but the woman reached out to grab some fabric, and when he reached out and put his hand on top of hers, right, because he was just feeling himself, if you will, and she snatched her hand back and was like, astaghfirullah. You know, how dare you touch me? Who do you think you're not my husband? You don't touch me. You know, she starts going off and screaming. The man gets all scared because everybody's looking at him. So he shuts the shop down, right? Goes home. As soon as he gets home, before he can even get to his door, his wife, boom, throws the door open. What did you do? He was like, well, now mind you, no telephones. Right? So she was like, what did you do? He was like, wait, what are you talking about? No, what did you do? He says, what are you talking about? She said, you did something today. He said, what do you mean? She said, today the milkman came here. He's been coming to our house for over 20 years, and he's never been done anything out of the ordinary. And today he tried to push himself into our home, right? Because he wanted to, I guess, rape the woman. And she said, I screamed out and he ran off. But this happened because you did something. You understand? And the husband had to tell what he did. Coincidence? Perhaps. But the man has never done anything all these years. The milkman never did anything all these years. The husband tries to get fresh. Now the milkman tried to get fresh. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes your sins affect other people around you. You know. And Allah knows best. But it does happen. Yes.
Even the Quran, was it corruption spread in the land and the sea because of what the hands of men have seen?
No. Well, you know, and having said that, you know, a lot of people feel like the reason why Muslims are going through what they're going through now in the world is because of the kathrat al-dhunub. You know, the increased amount of sins, right, that are occurring by the Muslims. We're not where we need to be in this because of our sins that everybody else is suffering. You know. So yeah. So it does have this effect. It does have this effect. And so now what we're looking at is, you know, what are some of the vices that we're talking about the heart right now, right? Because we're talking about Hifdh al-Qalb min al-Ma'asi. So how to protect the heart from disobedience. And understanding that, we need to understand first what is considered disobedience of the heart, and then what is the obedience parts of the heart. So how do we work between the two, right? And there might be more, but this is what our text has decided. This is what the author of this text has decided to share from his perspective, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, and the first one is what? Doubt. No. And it's not about just doubt, but doubt about what? The existence of Allah. Right? The doubt about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And we're talking about having doubt in Allah's essence or in any of his characteristics that are normally obligatory, for us to believe in, right? Like him being all merciful, right? Being the all-knower, the all-seer, the all-powerful, right? The most giving, things of this nature, right? We don't believe in them. You know, and what we're saying is that a person may be going through something, and then they begin to believe, well, Allah's not this. You know, I don't have any food, but Allah's supposed to be ar-Razaq. You know, but yet I'm not eating. You know, how does that work? You know, these kind of things. So the first act of disobedience of the heart is to have doubt in that for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the essence of Allah, in terms of the names that we understand him by, the characteristics for which we know him to be of. Because to say any of those attributes don't exist means it's almost to negate the existence of Allah in and of himself, right? And it also goes into the fact of that his attributes existed before they were known. You understand what I mean? That Allah wasn't the all-merciful after he showed somebody mercy. He was merciful before there was creation or anything to be merciful to. You understand what I'm saying? He was the most charitable before there was anything to give charity to. You know, like for us, you know, we get nicknames after we've done something. You know, back in the day, you know, I don't know, some little funky name, like, you know, the killer of the Hun, you know, the Hun killer, or whatever the case may be, you know. Well, he became the Hun killer after he killed some Huns. You know, he didn't get that attribute. Or the Braveheart. Well, you don't become Braveheart until you did something brave. You know, nobody just calls you Braveheart, right? You got to do something brave in order to get these titles, right? So Allah didn't had these attributes prior to. So to have doubt in them, meaning that did Allah really have these attributes, or does Allah really exist before existence was even a notion? These kind of things. Having doubt, you know, for instance, you know, we say in our Aqidah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like his creation. But then you have some people say, but Allah is sitting on his throne. Now I've got doubt. Wait a minute. Is Allah sitting or is he not sitting? Well, I don't believe any of you. I got doubt that this even, you know, that Allah even, no, man, I can't get with this. Right? There's a problem. Right? Anyways, so having doubt about the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. MashaAllah. Khair. Considering oneself outside of the realm of Allah's plan or beyond his mercy. Right? So this is like a person. Or I'm going to give you another example. You got a guy who wants to fornicate. He's Muslim. So he says, you know what? I leave Islam. Why? So I can go fornicate. Because I'm not Muslim anymore, so Allah's not going to punish me. Little do you know. Right? Because you thought that, well, the rules don't apply, so therefore I can do what I want to do. It doesn't work that way, partner. These rules are for everybody. It's just that some consciously adhere to them, some don't. But, you know, and those who don't know anything about it, well, that's another category. But to think that you are outside of the realm of Allah's plan, also meaning that you are the captain of your fate, the master of your destiny. Or is it, what is the master of my fate, captain of my, how's it go, that poem by Rudyard Kipling? I'm the master of my soul. I forget how it went. But nonetheless, this idea that you are in control, right? This is a huge aspect of misunderstanding. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no power or might except with Allah. Allah is what? Al-Qadir. He is what? The one that's what? In control. Al-Qadir. Because everything is within his qadr. As I was saying to the brother here, all of us are nothing more than a piece of driftwood floating in the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or I'm going to rephrase that, in the sea of Allah's qadr. That's what we are. We're driftwood in the sea of Allah's qadr. That's who we are. And we plan, but Allah's the best of what? Planners. We want to go right, but Allah wants us to go left. And left is the way we're going. We're not going right. Right? So if a person thinks that, well, I don't have to do certain things, or certain things don't apply to me, or I control my own destiny, you know, and that's the problem with a lot of men. That's why some people like to negate God, because they want to be in control. They don't like the idea of not being in control. Right? But the reality is that we are under the guise of Allah's qadr. Right? On the auspices is the word I'm looking for. Right? And then also, this also is like for those people who persist in their acts of disobedience, right? While thinking that they're going to still receive mercy. Right? Because you think I'm outside of the full scheme. In other words, I can do what I want to do, but at the end of the day, Allah is still going to show me mercy. Right? But Allah has already spoken about how He's going to deal with those who are disobedient. There's a Jewish tradition. The Prophet ﷺ talks about this guy named Kifl, right? And Kifl is a Jewish guy, but he's disobedient. He's a fornicator. He just fornicates, and he doesn't care. He just does it. But after every time he does it, he says, "Ya Rabbi," right? "Oh my Lord, you forgive, so forgive me." And Allah says to him, "My servant, you recognize that I'm your Lord, and you recognize that I'm the one that forgives, so I forgive you." Right? But I mean, he doesn't hear this. This is the Prophet ﷺ narrating this, right? So he says, he does this every night, right? And then one night he happened to meet this prostitute, and they're in the house, and she starts crying. And he's like, "Why are you crying?" And she says, "Because I have to do this in order to feed my family." So he starts feeling something different. So he says, "Here, look, just leave. Take the money, go, take care of your family." Right? So after she leaves, he sits there and he starts thinking, and he begins crying. And then he says to himself, "I'm not going to do this anymore. He just lost all his luster." And so he says, "Ya Allah, I take a covenant with you that I will never return to this. I will never return to this," right? So the next day, some of his friends are coming to look for him. And they couldn't find him in the places that they normally go, so they go to his house. They come to his house, and on the door is written, "Kifl has been forgiven." Right? But it's written in what they call angelic writing. And when angelic and even jinn writing kind of the same, in that when you look at it one way, it says whatever it's going to say. You look at it like a different way, you look at it upside down, it's going to say the same thing. You flip it around, it's going to say the same thing. Right? No matter how you look at it, it all says the same thing. Right? So it said in an angelic writing, Kifl has been forgiven. When they opened up the door, he was dead. Right? And they say he died, the Prophet ﷺ said he died because Allah wanted him to keep his covenant. Why? Because if he allowed him to live, he would have just gone back and did it again. You see what I'm saying? But Allah wanted him to keep his covenant, so that's why Allah took his life. Right? Point being is that this is a person who was excessive in his disobedience. Now he turned around and made his covenant, and Allah wanted to make sure he kept his covenant. But there are those people who are excessive in their acts of disobedience, and they think that Allah still loves them. This is what we call istidraj. Istidraj. Right? What is istidraj? Istidraj is when you see a person that is consistent in their acts of disobedience, thinking that Allah loves them, when in reality Allah is moving them further and further away from Him. Okay? This is istidraj. The Prophet ﷺ said, when you see Allah giving His servant that for which He loves, and the servant persists, right, in his disobedience, verily he's being lured away from Allah. You understand? So you see someone who's always in disobedience, but yet Allah's still giving this person stuff, still allowing certain things to happen for this person. The reality is that that person is being lured away more and more and more from Allah. Some people take on the attribute where it's like, I'm doing this. This is happening because of my efforts. Right? And they continue to act in a state of disobedience. But Allah is still allowing them to have. They're still receiving for whatever reason, whatever that receiving may be. But the reality is that Allah is moving them further and further away from themselves, from Him. Right? And on that day, they'll know. Even Imam Ghazali, he relates that one of there are two men that make dua, and one man Allah answers his dua very quickly, and the other man Allah doesn't answer his dua almost never. And he says that about the first man, that Allah didn't like hearing this man make dua, so he would give him what he wanted very fast, so he would stop making dua. Whereas the other man, he loved to hear him make dua, and that's why he refused to give him anything when he asked for it, because he wanted him to continuously to make dua. And then it said on the Day of Judgment about the second man, that when he's standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will tell him to enter into paradise from his rahmah. And he'll say, Ya Allah, how is it that I'm being given this gift? What did I do? And then Allah will say, look at the scale. And he'll look at the scale and he'll see that his good deeds outweigh his bad deeds. And then Allah will say, and the man will say to Allah, well, Ya Allah, what did I do to get all those good deeds? And Allah will tell him, remember all the times you made dua and I never answered it? Well, I didn't give it to you then because I wanted to give it to you now. Right? And so that was his cause and means for going into paradise. Yes?
Can it be the other way around? Like Allah extends your life so He gives you a chance to do good deeds?
What do you mean? Could it be the other way around?
Like you were saying, that guy died early because he wanted to give him a chance. Like he died early.
Oh, you're talking about Kifl.
Bad deeds, yeah.
Well, that's a story related by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the explanation came from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not from me. So that's why Allah took his life then, so that he wouldn't break his covenant. Again, Allah knows his creation better than creation knows itself. And Allah, and you know from your Aqidah class that Allah knew what his creation would do before he created creation, right? So when his creation made that covenant, then he knew what his creation would do had he allowed his creation to live longer. So he could give him the gift. Because remember, death is not a punishment. Death is not a punishment, except for the disobedient. Right? For the lovers of this dunya, death is a punishment. Because they want to be in this dunya, right? For those who are lovers of Allah, those people who are obedient, those people who love and yearn for Allah, then this life is the punishment. The next life is what? Freedom. And when you really think about it, the next life is liberating. When you really think about it, but for those who are what? Prepared for it. Right? You follow me? MashaAllah. So it goes to say that you got to use your time wisely, right? I mean, because you were saying give them long life to do good deeds. But if you're someone that you just know that you're consistently persistent in your acts of disobedience, well, then you're not thinking in those terms. But we hope that, from our observation of this, hearing of it, that we'll all use our time wisely. Because Allah may not take our life. You may say, well, I'll make this covenant, and you're thinking, okay, Allah's going to take me, and it's going to be all good after that. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning, and you got to go through life. And then you have to decide whether or not you're going to do good deeds and things like that. You're going to turn it around for real. And that's kind of the point of this lesson, is to understand these acts of disobedience so you can ask yourself tomorrow morning, or not even tomorrow morning, when you walk out of here, what kind of person are you going to be? What do you want to do with yourself? And ask yourself, do I have doubt? Do I consider myself outside of Allah's plan? Am I truly beyond Allah's mercy? Which is impossible. But you become outside of Allah's mercy when you are a consistent sinner, basically. And what's worse is that, the good thing about Kifl was that he at least was blessed with the ability to make tawbah. Right? Because even Imam Ghazali says that, one should make tawbah no matter how frequent your sins are, right? Because it could be that you die having have made that tawbah. In the case of Kifl, he made his tawbah and Allah took his life, and for that reason, he's given paradise, right? But There are many people who will say, well, I can't make tawbah. Allah's never going to forgive me. Or I'm going to do this act and I'm going to wind up doing it again. So what's the point of even making tawbah? Right? As Umar ibn Khattab would say, the one that talked you into being disobedient in the first place is the one trying to keep you from making tawbah now. You see what I'm saying? So the point is, it's a blessing to even be able to make the tawbah. Because many of us commit sins, repetitive sins. May not be the same sin, but we've got an accumulation of sins in one day, and we haven't even thought to make tawbah. So even if Allah allows us to say astaghfirullah, gift. If Allah blesses us to make the wudu, to make a tawbah prayer, gift. To say Allahu Akbar, gift. You understand? Because it shows that we're not what? We're not going away from Allah and receiving His mercy. The fact that we're given the ability to make the tawbah, to want to make the tawbah, is Allah's mercy. You follow me? That is Allah's mercy right there manifested. He allowed you to say astaghfirullah for the action that you just engaged in, no matter what it is. And then if you're able to go further and make the tawbah, the prayer. Our Shaykh once said that, Shaykh Habib Ali al-Jafri, he said that just having regret is a form of tawbah. Right? And sometimes we do actions and we don't even have regret for it. So this is what I mean. Having even the ability to have regret is a mercy from Allah. You follow me? So to have these things, so we can't think that we're what? We're beyond Allah's mercy. Tell you. The next one. Considering oneself superior to the other slaves of Allah. Right? Takabbur. Right? So, takabbur, to think oneself to be better, right? As he puts here in the footnotes that the Prophet ﷺ said, it is sufficient evil for a man that he despise his brother, right? Or his brother Muslim, right? The thing is, we have to remember that whatever ability you have has been given to you by Allah. And as Allah gives, He can also take it away. So we should never, ever think that we're better than another Muslim. It doesn't matter if it's your lineage. It doesn't matter about your language. It doesn't matter about your nationality. It doesn't matter about your financial status. It doesn't even matter about your lack of financial status. Because there are people who find pride in poverty. Right? And I hear some people say, we're just like the Sahaba. As if that's we're broke. And we don't have all this and all that dunya. So you got all that dunya. As if I'm better than you because I don't have dunya. Brother, you want that dunya. And if Allah gave you the chance to have it, you take it in a second. But the thing is that you cannot think yourself for any reason at all to think yourself better than someone, another Muslim specifically. Because the reality is that there's always someone better than you, someone who's smarter than you, more athletic than you, or more handsome or more pretty, more jovial, more serious, more witty, more cunning. There's always someone better than you, right? I knew a guy who he owned some houses, and he used to look at everybody else like, look at these little peons, they're not doing nothing, they're not getting their lives together, look at them, he's always comparing himself to people who are not at his level. And then one day I said to him, you always seem to do that. I said, but what about people who are doing what you're doing? Because to be kind of frank about it, you ain't doing nothing. You're not doing as much. Because I know a guy who has this, and this, and he's got way more than what you have. Oh, see, but that's not even, you can't really say that because, But I am saying that because you're comparing yourself to people who aren't doing what you're doing, but you think that you're better than them because you're doing something. Now let's look at people who are quote unquote doing something, and let's look at where you really are comparatively speaking, because that's a more fair assessment of where you are. And the reality is that you're not doing anything, comparatively speaking. You're still scratching the surface. And that's something he didn't really appreciate, because now you have to take a realistic look at oneself. But see, that's the point. Everybody always tries to look at people who are not at their level in order to make themselves feel better. So it's like we're looking at the detriment of other people in order to find some type of self-satisfaction. And how can we be satisfied at the demise of other people or the degradation of another person? Because as a Muslim, that's not right. Because we're supposed to be helping the people that are below us to come up. That's the point of a Muslim, akh al-Muslim, that the Muslim is the brother, or in some cases sister, of another Muslim. We're family. We're talking about the ummah. But the reality is we don't really care about the ummah, right? We really don't. You know, you probably have Muslims right here in Vancouver that are starving, that are homeless, that, women needing help, got children and husband is bad and no good and they got no assistance, right? And they need help. You got people right here who need financial help, but yet we're sending our money back to whatever country, trying to help people back there. And then you expect, let's say in my case, you expect me to help, but I've got people right here who need help. Why am I giving you money to send back to your country to help other people when we got people right here who need assistance? That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't, because we have people in our faces that need help. I'm not saying they don't, but what are we doing? You see what I'm saying? And so we're not really a people who care about what? An ummah. And in some cases, we want to have people below us because we want to be able to look better than other people. We want to have have-nots, so I can be a have so that I can look down upon the have-nots or feel that I have some type of superior level or superior position than these people.
الحمد لله القادر